Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Upper Hand Podcast, where our goal is to leverage limitations and turn adversity into advantage. Here's your host, Chris Ruden.
We are back with another episode of the Upper Hand Podcast. I am your host, Chris Ruden. Now, I don't know if you know, have you heard of people joining these things? They literally pay money to jump over objects and go through ice water and run and climb things, fall in the mud, do burpees, all this stuff. They pay for these obstacle courses, like absolutely obstacle course racers. They're literally paying money for it and they enjoy it. Which brings us to our topic today. Hardship is not the end of the world. Why do I bring up obstacle course racers? Because I find it so funny that, you know, when people say they find it funny, you know they don't actually find it funny. I find it funny that people pay money for obstacles that are meant to be hard, and people do them and enjoy getting over them. And if they can't get over them, they take a punishment or a consequence, and then they keep going. And they love it. But that's not the part that I find funny. What I find funny is that same concept we can't apply to anything in life. We tend to struggle with applying that concept of seeing challenges as an opportunity to beat it or accepting the struggle and moving forward. People pay to do these things. Well, Chris, life's not a game. Life's not a game. You're right. Life just is. And it doesn't care about your perspective. It doesn't care about your struggle or your pain or your shame or anything like that. So if life just is, why don't we make life what we make it? And if you have the opportunity to enjoy an obstacle race or a puzzle or something that's meant to be hard, why can't we do that with our struggles? Now, I'm not saying to take hardship and be happy for hardship. Be happy for the solution that comes from hardship. Now, a lot of us are born into different circumstances, or there are things outside of our control that we can't do anything about, you know, and that's not a point of privilege that I want to bring up. I really want to talk about there are circumstances similar to me being born with a disability that you can't do anything about. I can never change that. And I wouldn't say my disability is a hardship, but the way I've acted throughout my life has made it harder. There are certain things that have made it more difficult, but at the end of the day, it has been up to me to choose my hard. Do I choose to live life like a broken person, or do I choose a slightly better perspective that will put me in a position to create a life that I want? Hardship is not the end of the world. ... As long as you don't make it that way. The story that follows the hardship is going to tell you everything you ever need to learn, because honestly, and this is going to be one of those moments that I really need you to stick with me. I really need you to pay attention on this. Hardship does not exist when we remove emotion. Whether you were born with a disability, any situation like that, I was not born into hardship. I was just born. The word hardship is something we sprinkle on top of what happens. There's what happens and the story we tell ourselves about what happens. And I learned this first person when I went and spoke in Uganda about type 1 diabetes to a village of kids with type 1 diabetes. We had about 64 kids. And as I got there, I'm interacting with them. I started to feel bad. I was like, man, these kids have it so hard. They're struggling so bad. This must suck so much. And then I stopped talking. I shut up for a second and I looked, I took it in. And I realized these kids with tattered clothes, no shoes, playing soccer with a messed up, soccer ball, they were so happy with each other. They took what they had and enjoyed it. Instead of what we often do and make it worse because we wish we had more, they were happy with what they had. Gratitude being the antidote for greed, they enjoyed life so much. When I was giving them a different story, I was giving them a hardship story. Now, that's not to say they don't have it hard if we talk about it, but what I'm saying is they chose to tell themselves a different story. They chose to focus on what they actually had, focus on what you can control. They chose to stop putting their hand on the stove. They really chose that hardship was not going to define potential to be happy or have quality of life. we tend to tell ourselves things are so much worse. And usually it's not the hardship that sucks. It's the fear of what might happen, the fear of never getting better, the fear of this circumstance, the present moment being extrapolated for the rest of our lives. And in being afraid that it's always going to be like this and constantly telling ourselves this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, we never give ourselves the space or the energy to make it not suck, because we're so consumed with the problem, we're not looking for a solution. We're looking for validation in why this sucks. You don't need someone else to agree with you and say it sucks. That does nothing for you. If anything, that gives you permission to get your foot off the gas and sit in the shit. Hardship doesn't have to be a game. It doesn't have to be an obstacle course race. You don't have to go to a third world country to know that hardship happens sometimes. Sometimes you won't just magically prevail. The Disneyfication of success that we see on social media and entrepreneurship, sometimes that won't happen. Sometimes staying in your lane and just win by default, keep going, keep going, keep going. Sometimes you don't need to keep going. Sometimes winners need to know when to quit so that they can redefine their life and choose a different perspective that will help them. It's not always about winning. And if it is about winning, the true win is going to be in your mind, in the way you communicate with yourself, the way you give yourself permission to mess up, to experience hardship, to fail, but also to not sit in it. You have to give yourself permission to experience hardship, but focus on solutions and not just the problems. Hardship doesn't have to take over your life. It's going to be a component of your life at some point. But hardship isn't everything. Perspective is.